Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the new format with me and Lauren. Welcome back, Lauren.
Hello. Thank you.
What do we got today?
Yeah, Devin. So I wanted to devote this episode to something we realized yesterday. So you were speaking at a high school to a bunch of juniors and seniors, something you do fairly often. And we realized afterwards that a lot of their questions were related to making a decision. And something we realized that can paralyze people sometimes is sometimes when you're making a decision, there's no clear right or wrong answer. And so I thought we could kind of explore that thought and how do you navigate through that?
This is one of my favorite topics to talk about because it was so impactful in my life when I was at a big crossroads. So I was at the crossroads rather to pursue entrepreneurialism or to take a really big promotion at the company I worked for. And this was truly one of the best revelations I've had in my life because the story behind it is I had worked in corporate America. I felt like I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I worked in corporate America and I hadn't had like this great idea yet to be an entrepreneur. I had some ideas, none of which had a lot of, meat on the bones, nothing that I could really truly put a business plan behind. But I had this in my spirit that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Well, along the path of working in corporate America, I got offered the promotion, this really great promotion. I worked at a great company. I'll give them a shout out. It was Enterprise. It was a great company. They treated me really well, and I learned a ton. Very, very appreciative of everything that I learned and how much I grew when I worked there. But I got offered the promotion. If you know Enterprise, the big promotion is in St. Louis, right?
Yes.
And I think it was like going to be on the 4th floor or something like that at the time, right? It was where all the big corporate bigwigs work and everything. And it was like, this would have been a really cool career path move. And they basically offered it to me. And I was at this like weird crossroads where it was Friday afternoon and they told me, hey, like we kind of need to know by Monday. And I'm like, okay. A little nervous here, but I got to make a decision this weekend. So over the weekend, I went and I told my wife, and she's like, I don't know what you should do. And I'm like, I don't know what I should do either. I feel like I want to be an entrepreneur. Like that's what I want to do, but I don't have a good idea yet. I have some ideas or I could pursue, but like if I take this job at corporate, we're going to have to move. It's going to be great. It's going to be good money, but like, I don't see myself leaving. It's going to be hard to leave, Mm-hmm. And so over the weekend, I prayed about it. I knew I was right, like I was living right, but I had no clear direction. So I decided on Sunday morning I was going to go, and I was going to go to every single church service, like from sunrise to the noon, right? I was going to go to all 3 of the services. And by the end of that, I would clearly know what's right or wrong. And so first service, I got nothing. I mean, literally crickets, nothing, right? Not even like an inkling. Yeah. Next service, I was like, nothing. Finally, the 3rd service rolled around. I thought, this is it. The heavens are going to open. God's going to speak to me. I'm going to know exactly what decision I should make. I mean, zero, nada, nothing. I get to the end, and at the very end, I'm kind of sitting there by myself, and everyone kind of left, and I'm really tormented and upset. And then all of a sudden, you know how they say the small voice of God or whatever? Like I really felt like I had this small little thing inside my spirit where God was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I never thought about it that way. I always thought like, what's the right answer? There's a right answer and a wrong answer. And then I really felt like God was saying, hey, like you can go right or you can go left. These are both right answers for you. You can go take this job at corporate and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be, you're going to have to work hard. It's going to have its challenges, its highs and lows. But like, this is a super cool path for you. Or you can go pursue being an entrepreneur. That's a super cool path for you. It's going to have highs, it's going to have lows. Which one do you want to do? And I literally was free. I'd love to tell you I didn't have any anxiety because I did have anxiety, but I was free to make a decision that I felt like God was saying, I can go left or I can go right. Which one do I want? And he was going to bless me on either path. And so I share that story with a lot of people when they're at these crossroads of their life that like, hey, and this is the checklist that I do in my own head, was one, have I prayed about it? Have I really taken it before the Lord? Two, am I living in any unrepentant sin, right? Like, is there something like inside me that's like, this is wrong and something's off, And if I'm not, like, if I'm living like I'm pursuing God, I'm, not living in unrepentant sin, I've taken it before Him and I haven't got an answer. I really believe He's saying, what do you want to do, Devin? Like, which one do you get excited about? And I was like, you know what? I'm excited about being an entrepreneur. And so I chose right. And I'd love to tell you that the minute I chose right, it was like, smooth sailing, and the path was perfectly straight and easy. It wasn't. It had the highs, it had the lows, it had the challenges, it had the sleepless nights and all these crazy things. But it was an incredible journey. But I know had I chose left, that one would have been right too. Would have had highs, would have had lows, would have had all the crazy journeys along that way, but that would have been equally fulfilling. And I believe that's what God gives us in our life. He lets us have this free will. He lets us do sometimes what we want to do. What we want to do. How freeing is that?
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think so many people are paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong decision?
You know what? Because we do. We think there's a wrong decision, and we think that there's also no U-turns in life. So I grew up, in the 80s, and, it was always beat into me that to never be a quitter, right? And don't get me wrong, like, there are people that literally have a quitting mentality in their life, right? And so, like, if you're a quitter, like, turn this off, right? This is not for you, right? But I grew up with the idea that, like, you don't ever quit anything, right? And it was this kind of there was this nobility and perpetual loyalty, right? Which means, all those songs like, the Beach Boys, be true to your school, like if you go to this school, you're going to be true to it forever, right? Like, this is where you're going to play football at, and you're going to love your high school forever, and you're never leaving it. And if you move towns, you're a traitor, right? Or whatever. And like, or you chose this path, so you're loyal to this company for the rest of your life. And that was kind of ingrained into a lot of people's heads, right? There was this nobility and perpetual loyalty. And I realized that, I don't know, I don't think that's biblical, right? Like, if you look at all people, like people in the Old Testament, they had crazy pasts, right? They lived in all kinds of different places. They did lots of different things, lots of different challenges. Sometimes even for Paul in the New Testament, his heart was to go to one place and he was never even able to get there, right? Like, God takes us on these crazy paths that oftentimes is not this straight line. And so we think that if we choose right, that's it for the rest of our lives. And we can set ourselves free because there is no nobility in perpetual loyalty, right? Sometimes the hard and the right thing to do is to make a U-turn and to change directions and to change courses. So, our kids were struggling with this idea of like which college to choose. And so I shared with them, listen, one of the things I did, I actually changed colleges, and their jaw dropped. Like, they didn't even know that was an option, right?
Yeah.
I just said, hey, I don't have a bad thing to say about that first college. It was amazing. God had that for me at that point in my life. And, I had some great friends, great experiences. I grew. But there was a time in my life when I needed to do a U-turn and make a change somewhere else. And so I shared this with my kids, and I said, listen, you guys are trying to decide what college to go to. There's no right or wrong answer. And even if you pick one answer and that's right for you today, it doesn't mean it's going to be right for you 2 years from now. You can change your mind. And it kind of blew their mind, right? Like, it blew their mind. And I think we think about this. And one of the things I tell people when they're at these points, I said, yeah, if you make a decision and you change your mind, that's fine, because you're going to make a covenant with your wife. You're going to commit to the Lord. Like, you make a covenant to God. You commit to your spouse. After that, everything else is just decisions.
Yeah.
That's it, right? Like, and we think like, oh, just because I chose this career, I made a covenant to this company or a covenant to this school or this decision. And that's not true. You just made a decision, and you can change your mind. You can make U-turns. And so when people, they get paralyzed because they think they're choosing something for the rest of their life. What house am I going to buy? well, listen, if you don't like it, you can sell it. I'm not going to tell you it's not going to be painful.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you moving is fun, right? What if you like, oh, am I supposed to live in Florida or California? I don't know. Maybe Florida for a couple years and then California, maybe Colorado along the way. Who knows what God has for you, right? But there's freedom and understanding that we have the ability to change and we have free will. We get to choose what's right for us today, might not be right for us tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. What's one mindset shift we can make that can help someone move forward when both answers are correct?
This is fun. Joy.
Mm-hmm.
Joy, because I was talking with my friend about this the other day. He knows he is. And he had anxiety, right? Like he had such anxiety because he was talking about this decision or that decision. I said, well, but I'm going to be honest with you. They both sound like great decisions. And he was so like, he was kind of frustrated with me. Like, man, what good are you? I thought you were going to help me make this decision.
Yeah.
And I said, no. I'm not here to help you make the decision. I'm saying they both sound really great. And I said, how much joy is there in knowing that either decision can be great? Either decision can be the right decision. And it was all of a sudden like you could see from anxiety just decompressed out of him. And I said, now fill that back up with joy. Because you can go left and be 100% fulfilled, or you can go right and be 100% fulfilled. And so I challenged him. I said, now live in the joy of the fact that you have two great decisions. And it really set him free. Like in a matter of a phone call, you could see that the Holy Spirit kind of shifted him and set him free. And so I would challenge people when you have these type of decisions, find the joy in it. And for me, like I said, when I made my big decision to go be an entrepreneur, it was literally, what do I want to do? Right? It changed from not what's the right decision to they're both right decisions. Now, which one do I want to do? Which one am I excited about? And I was like, I'm excited about this. And boom, that was the decision for me.
Once we make a decision, how can we stay confident and avoid second guessing?
I think we should always evaluate our decisions, right? Because like I said, sometimes there is that point in our life when we have to make a U-turn, right? But being confident in the decision oftentimes means knowing that your decision can change. And so allowing ourselves to be set free from the idea that I made this decision once and for all and I'm following it, to the end of time, unless it's a ring on the finger, you know what I mean? Like you can change. And so evaluating your decisions. And again, if you're a quitter, turn this episode off, right? Because this is not for you. And if you have a quitting mindset. But I'm talking about like evaluating your decisions constantly. Like for me, like what was right for me 10 years ago is absolutely not right for me today. And so I have to constantly evolve and change. And a lot of people, what they do is they hate decision-making so much that they will never change anything. And they think that what happens is they say things like, I don't like change, right? And so I'm a person that doesn't like change. Well, I'm going to tell you, I know plenty of people that are absolutely miserable that say they don't like change. And the truth of the matter is, they don't want to make a decision because they're miserable in their decision, but they won't confront the situation enough and have enough courage to go and change and make another decision. They're like, I just made the decision, so I'm going to live miserable for the rest of my life, but this is what I'm going to do. And I would challenge that mindset and say, no, evaluate the decisions you made because today it's not right for you. You're not happy. So have the courage to go and make a decision to change your situation and set yourself free from this idea of going, no, I'm not afraid to, I'm a person who doesn't like change. No, you're not. You're a person who doesn't have enough courage to make another decision.
What's one thing you want our listeners to take away who are facing a decision like this?
Yeah. Well, I think going back to where I started, which is the self-reflection, like understanding first and foremost, am I right before God and man, right? Like when you put your head on the pillow, do you have unrepentant sin? Do you have unforgiveness? Do you have stuff in your life that literally is hindering who you are and clouding your perception, clouding your decision-making, clouding everything, right? Are you right before God and man? And then secondly, if you are, have you taken this decision before the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
If you've done those two things, find joy.
Mm-hmm.
Find joy. Because if you still look at those two things and they still look like both of them are good decisions, find joy in it, and then set a time limit, right? I haven't talked about this early, but I think this is super important because many people, you need to put a time limit on this, right? Because otherwise your someday, it becomes never, right? And sometimes you have to say, I'm going to make this decision by next Sunday. Sometimes you have to say, I'm going to make this decision by the end of the month. We challenged my son to do this. He was at that point where he was like, couldn't decide what college, and he was overthinking everything. And we helped him evaluate it. And I knew where he was life. I knew where he was at in his life. I had this conversation with him, and he's like, yeah, Dad, I really feel like I've taken it to God. I do feel like I'm living my life right. I feel like I've done all these things, and both these decisions look great. Then I said, great. By the time we get home from lunch, you're going to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave him I think it was like a 10-minute drive, and he was in the back seat, quiet as could be, sweating. And we pulled into the development, and he told us, hey, Dad, I'm going to go to Point Loma. I said, good for you. That's your decision. Mm-hmm. And it was made, and it set him free, because otherwise he was eventually going to make the same decision, mm-hmm. right? Whether he chose that or Baylor or whichever one he chose, he was going to make a decision. Why wait 4 more weeks and have that anxiety of 4 more weeks? Sometimes you have to put a time limit on it and say, I'm gonna decide by the time dinner's over, by the time dessert's over, I'm gonna make a decision, right? And because that will free you. And then if you start to go on that path, maybe something will happen that turns you, right? But start going down that route, make a decision, enjoy it, and find joy in it.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. I'm ready.
Devin, I hope this really helps you out. As an entrepreneur or anyone that's pursuing your dreams, you're going to be confronted with this time and time and time again. And so I want you to find joy in the decision-making rather than anxiety, and know that just because you choose right doesn't mean that things are going to be always smooth. Just because you choose left doesn't mean it's always smooth. It's how you live out those decisions and how you execute day after day after day after you make a decision. That's the hard part. I'm Devin. Hope you enjoy this podcast.